Welcome to Quilting Lesson 1 Part 3. In this video, we're going to test sew our fabric, we're going to troubleshoot some possible threading errors, and we're going to look over the rest of the computerized buttons on the arm of the Singer Quantum Stylist 9960 sewing machine. In the last video, we threaded the bobbin and the spool, so these should already be in place on our machine. Turn the machine on. The Start-Stop button will be red, which indicates that you're not ready to start sewing. Once you place the fabric on the machine and you lower the presser foot, the light will then turn green and you're ready to begin. Apply pressure to the foot pedal to start sewing. Just above the Start-Stop button, there is a U-turn symbol. This is your reverse stitch. This is helpful if you want to tack back a few stitches, and then you can hold this button down. When you release the button, you'll begin sewing forward again. Above this, we see a button with some arrows and a turtle. The arrows indicate that this button will raise and lower your needle. If the machine is stopped, then this button will raise or lower the needle once. This is equivalent to turning the hand wheel a half a rotation. If you continue holding the foot pedal down and you press this button, then the machine will start to sew very slowly, and then it will resume the speed that it's set to once the button is pressed again. You saw us demonstrate the thread snipping button in the last video. This button automatically snips both pieces of thread just as you're finished sewing. And this is a nice feature because if you're used to finishing a piece and then pulling it from the machine to manually cut the thread, or if you're used to using a little thread slicer that's mounted on the back of your machine, then you're familiar with the effect that you get on pulling on those last few stitches, where on the side of your piece you can get a little bit of a puckering from pulling on those stitches. When you use this button, this little obstacle is completely eliminated. Now it's important to remember, don't press this button if the presser foot is up, or if you just don't need to cut the threads at that moment. If your machine isn't in the correct position, this button can tangle your bottom bobbin thread. So only snip the thread when you're removing your fabric and the presser foot is in the down position. Above all these buttons, there's a switch with some arrows marked above it. This is a speed setting. If I move this all the way to the left, then the fastest speed I get on the machine when the foot pedal is pushed fully down is still pretty slow. And as I move it to the right, the speed will incrementally get faster until it's moved all the way to the right to its fastest speed. And you can just adjust this to your comfort level for the project that you're working on. Once you're finished sewing your test piece, let's take a look at the result. Your straight stitch should look even and smooth on both sides. If you ran it through, you'll see one straight line. But if you tacked backward a few stitches and then continued forward, you can make out where that tacking is, but it still should look very well blended, and it still should look like a straight line with maybe a little bit of a darker mark on it. Now, if the beginning of your piece looks a little chewed up at the start, then this is likely because you didn't remove the last piece correctly and you tried to snip the thread with the presser foot up. Sometimes that bobbin will get a little bit tangled and then it'll sort itself out after a few stitches. So then the first 10 stitches of your next piece will look eaten up while the rest of it looks perfectly fine. Now, if only one side looks smooth, but the bottom of the piece looks like this loose tangled mess, then this means that the machine probably wasn't threaded correctly. So in order to solve this, you'll go back and you'll take out the bobbin and then you'll set it back into place and rethread the spool at the top of the machine. And now we're going to move to the most fun part of the machine, the control panel and the 600 stitches that you can create.